Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our very first webinar on NJUCF's Community Stewardship Incentive Program, or CSIP grants. We hope this is just one of many webinars to come. My name is Terry Slack, and I'll be your host today. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. You should see a control panel in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Click the orange arrow at the top if necessary, to expand the panel fully. Lots of useful information is available via the control panel. For example, you'll be able to see who else is on the webinar, and there are a number of CSIP documents which we've uploaded for you. Those documents are available in the handouts part of your panel. At the bottom of your control panel is the questions and chat box. If you have questions during today's presentation, please type them into this box. Questions should be related to the CSIP RFP. You can type in questions at any time during today's presentation. We'll collect and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. While we have a lot to share with you today, we don't want you to stress out taking too many notes. Therefore, we're recording today's webinar. You'll receive a follow-up email from us with more specific information on how to access the recording. I would now like to introduce today's presenter, Carrie Sargent. Carrie is the Urban and Community Forestry Coordinator for the New Jersey Forest Service. Carrie previously worked for the state's No Net Loss Compensatory Reforestation Program. Prior to coming to the state, she worked in the nonprofit sector on urban and community forestry, community redevelopment, green infrastructure, and park and playground development for the New Jersey Tree Foundation, the Heart of Camden, and the Trust for Public Land. She holds a Master of Forestry degree from the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies and a BS in Wildlife Ecology from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She served as a Peace Corps volunteer with the Uganda Forest Department and is an ISA certified arborist and a New Jersey licensed tree expert. While I've only worked with Carrie for a few short months, I can see and appreciate how much effort and passion she brings to the UCF program every day. I'm now going to turn the webinar over to Carrie.
Thank you, Terry. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Terry to the New Jersey Urban and Community Forestry team and introduce her to you all. Terry is our newest addition. She received her BS in Environmental Science from Cook College of Rutgers University. She's been with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection for nearly 30 years, working in compliance and enforcement, solid and hazardous waste, and air quality, energy, and sustainability. Terry is a certified recycling professional, and she's a certified sustainability professional, and she's a great addition to our team. I'd also like to thank you all for joining us today for our first webinar, and now on with the presentation. Today we're going to go over the New Jersey Urban and Community Forestry Program's Community Stewardship Incentive Program grant, otherwise known as the CSIP grant. We have three primary areas that we're going to cover today. We'll give you an overview of the grant for 2017. We'll do the rules of the road, and at the end we'll provide for questions and wrap up. For those of you who may not know, the New Jersey Urban and Community Forestry Program encourages and supports voluntary stewardship and effective management of trees and forest ecosystems in New Jersey's communities through accreditation, technical assistance, and financial assistance. Today's focus is on the financial assistance component of our program, through which we provide grants to local governments and shade tree commissions to assist in the implementation of an approved comprehensive community forestry management plan. This year, we have just over $1.8 million available through the New Jersey Treasure Our Tree license plate, through the No Net Loss Compensatory Reforestation Program, and some years we do get funds from the Green Acres diversions. This year we do not have any Green Acres funding going towards the grant. You can reference all of this information in sections 1 and 2 of the request for proposals under purpose and source of funding. All of the handouts, the request for proposal, are all provided on our website, communityforestry.nj.gov, as well as with this webinar. take a brief time out to just encourage you all to also get the Treasure Our Trees license plates, as those grants go towards our non-tree planting and reforestation grants. Section 3 of the RFP goes over eligibility. First, we'll talk about eligibility for applicants. Eligible applicants include municipal and county governments and their shade tree commissions, tree committees, tree boards, or tree councils. Applicants cannot have an open CSIP grant or an open no net loss grant from the New Jersey Urban and Community Forestry Program. You can have an open Green Communities grant for the writing or update of your community forestry management plan. All applicants must be accredited or have approved status under the NJUCF program. What is accreditation? Accreditation means approved status. It's a process whereby the New Jersey Urban and Community Forestry Program, in consultation with the New Jersey Community Forestry Council, recognizes a community's demonstrated ability to meet the established standards of the NJUCF program. We will cover this requirement in more detail when we review the application. Section 3 also covers the eligibility of projects. Projects under this grant must take place on public property owned or maintained by a municipal or county government. Oftentimes, applicants want to carry out tree planting projects on Board of Education property. This is acceptable, but your application must include a letter of support from the Board of Education stipulating that they agree to the project and detailing the agreement for carrying out the project and maintenance of the trees after the planting project is complete. Projects must link to one of the 2 grant categories in the 2017 RFP. Only projects for one grant category can be applied for. For example, if you're doing an inventory and EAB mitigation plan, you can apply for a grant under the Resiliency Planning category, and you can carry out planting, but you cannot apply for planting money and Resiliency Planning money in the same grant. You have to apply in one category or the other. The projects must refer to practices addressed in the applicant's current approved community forestry management plan. While you're thinking about your projects and developing your proposals, it's important to keep in mind that there are more reforestation and tree planting grants available than Resiliency Planning grant. So if your municipality or county is putting money up for a tree planting, then consider your options. You may want to use those funds to carry out your resiliency planning, your inventory, your ash assessment, and then come in for a tree planting grant. It's up for you to decide. I just want you to be aware of the situation. Section 4 of the request for proposal goes over grant categories and funding allocations. This year there are 2 grant categories, resiliency planning and reforestation and tree planting. Proposals will be fully funded to the extent possible. The New Jersey Urban and Community Forestry Program reserves the right to reallocate the number and amount of grant awards based on the quantity and/or quality of the proposals received. Grant category number 1 is resiliency planning. These are grants for up to $10,000. Projects can include, but are not limited to, tree inventory, risk tree assessment, pre or post-storm assessments, insect and disease management projects such as ash surveys or EAB mitigation planning and risk assessment, or any combination of these activities. With regard to EAB and ash survey, we also strongly encourage you to explore other grant options that may be out there, including federal suppression grants and other grant opportunities. Grant category number 2 is reforestation and tree planting. These grants are for up to $30,000. They can support small-scale projects of up to 100 2 to 2.5 inch caliper B&B trees, for example. The monetary amount and size of the trees are just for reference. Applicants are free to develop reforestation and tree planting projects with tree material and reforestation activities that ensure the growth and establishment of trees and forests that best suit the needs of your community. Planting must take place within 1 year of the start of the work period of the grant agreement, and projects must be based on an existing inventory and the community forestry management plan. All projects must submit and have approved a reforestation tree planting and maintenance plan within 6 months of the start of the work period in accordance with the program's tree planting and maintenance plan guidelines, which incorporate tree care industry standards and forestry BMPs. Please note that this plan is distinct from the work plan that you submit with your proposal. There is a copy available of the website, and we have also provided it here within this webinar. Although you might have a detailed work plan in your request for proposals, if you are doing a tree planting project, a separate plan must be submitted independent of the proposal after the awarding of the grant. Section 5 of the RFP goes over grant requirements. Grantees must comply with the terms and conditions in the grant agreement, including record keeping, timely submittal of required reports, completion of projects within the defined work period, compliance with applicable laws and policies. They must maintain accreditation with the New Jersey Urban and Community Forestry Program, and only reimbursements will be made for eligible expenses. There will not be any prepayouts under this grant. We will go over in more detail with these requirements with awardees, but you should read and be aware of what the requirements will look like within the grant agreement. Section 6 of the RFP goes over proposal requirements. The New Jersey Urban and Community Forestry Program grant proposal application form must be filled out in its entirety. Applications with an incomplete or missing application form will be deemed ineligible. Only one proposal may be submitted by a local government unit. That proposal may only address one grant category defined in the RFP, although it may address more than one CSIP practice. I'm just going to add in a reminder here again about choosing wisely about what kind of grant you might apply for this year. The grant request cannot exceed the funding allocations described in this RFP, but it can be lowered. All proposals must be accompanied. Sorry about that. All proposals must be accompanied by resumes, consultant qualifications, and letters of support as defined in Section 8 and 9 of the RFP. All proposals must identify a project manager whose primary responsibility is to coordinate the project work, communicate with the New Jersey Urban and Community Forestry Program, and report on implementation and performance of the grant. Matching funds of 50% of the grant amount are required. These matching funds can be made up of in-kind volunteer contribution or cash from local, state, federal, or other entities. Examples of in-kind matches could be meetings of the Shade Tree Commission or committee, grant management by municipal staff, project assistance, outreach and education to inform your community about the work that you're going to be performing under this grant. We can look at this in more detail when we review the budget portion of the application. Section 7 of the RFP talks to reporting and accountability. Funded projects must comply with the accounting, progress, and accomplishment reporting requirements defined in the grant agreement. At a minimum, all grants will require interim reports due annually beginning 1 year after the start of the work period agreement each year until the end of the work period. A final report at the end of the work period will also be due. Again, We will go over these details in more depth with the awardees during the execution of the grant agreements, but you should be aware of this when you develop your proposal. Now we get to the heart of the presentation, the criteria for grant proposal selection. This is section 8 in the request for proposal. There are 5 sections that are actually scored. We will now go over each section in detail. There's CSMP implementation for 35 points. There's the work plan for 25 points, community capacity for 20 points, monitoring and evaluation for 10 points, and budget for 10 points, for a total of 100 points. Last year's average score was 41% out of 100. The primary problem was that the proposals were not referencing the Community Forestry Management Plan, the work plans were weak, and there was a lack of detail in the budget. Before we get onto the scored components, I'm going to go over the application form itself. All proposals must be submitted through the application form. The only additional pages should be the ones that are required, such as resumes, support for Tree City USA or Sustainable Jersey, or letters of support. Excuse me. The first 2 pages are necessary information for contract development should you be awarded a grant. Project information. In this section, we ask who the applicant is. If you're a municipality, state the proper municipality name. For example, Borough of Anytown, USA. If you're a county, please do the same thing. Other local government agency authority, as long as they are affiliated with the local government, you can put the name here. This would be for an actual shade tree commission or an independent utility authority that's a part of a local government. For the application date, please submit the date that you submit the application. Your project name should be inclusive and reflect the work that you are doing. For example, Anytown USA's Main Street Tree Planting Program, or Get the Bug Out, Anytown USA, EAB Mitigation Planning. Also, we'd like to know the estimated start date of your project. This would be predicated upon receiving the award sometime in late July. The project location, here we need the municipality and the county. Anybody from Washington Township, New Jersey knows why I'm asking this question. Please check off one grant category, either resiliency planning or reforestation and tree planting. We also ask for the project street address. This can be a range of addresses, but it must be filled in. You must have an idea of where your project is going to take place. If it is citywide, specify that. We also ask for the blocks and lots that pertain to the addresses you reflect. Please enter this information. It helps us map and keep track of where the work is being done throughout your community. The number of trees to be planted if you are applying for a tree planting grant should be entered here. Here is the infamous project manager section. Please refer to section 6, bullet 6 of your request for proposal and fill out the project manager accordingly. This is the person that must know what's going on with the grant at all times. It is the person that we will reach out to should we have any questions, and they need to know what's going on not only with the grant implementation, but implementation of the project. Oftentimes, municipalities will put in a project manager because of the person's title or their rank within the government, but then we call and they don't even know about the grant or what the project is. So it's important that this project manager is the person that understands what's going on. We require a phone number and an email address. Now for the budget numbers. In this box, it will auto-populate with the total grant request from page 11 on the budget form of your RFP. In this box, we ask you to populate it with the total match. This is for in-kind and cash. Understand that in-kind is for volunteer services and cash is for anything that the municipality will be paying outright. Points are earned for projects with more than the required 50% minimum match and for projects using volunteer hours as match. This is because in our federal reports, we are asked to show the match, and we are also asked to show how much volunteer time was contributed towards our program. Higher numbers for us mean more federal funding through the formula in the future. Make sure that the total match reflects the in-kind match plus the cash match and the total. The project total should be the grant request here plus the match here to give you the grand total for the project. Please note that these numbers must match these numbers must match those on the budget form on page 11. The applicant information is the next component of the application. Here is where we ask you if you have accreditation or approved status under the program. You can find this out by simply going to the New Jersey Urban and Community Forestry website at www.communityforestry.nj.gov. You can scroll down and hit 2016 Approved Status Report. This report is updated on a monthly basis, a little bit more now that we're in the grant season. If there's any questions about your community in this report, feel free to reach out to Brian McDonald from our program. To determine your approved status, you can also answer the following questions. Is the applicant compliant with the Shade Tree and Community Forestry Assistance Act guidelines? This would be yes or no, whether you have approved status. To be compliant, the applicant must answer yes to the following 3 questions. Note, if the applicant is in the initial year of CSMP implementation, you may answer no to see below if the number of years in A is 1. So if you're in your first year of implementation of an approved plan, your plan was just approved in 2016 for the first time, the only requirement is that you have the 2 trained core volunteers, you submitted your annual accomplishment report, and you do not have to have the 8 CEUs. For anybody beyond their first year of plan implementation, you must have the CEUs. So A, does the applicant have an approved community forestry management plan? Answer yes or no, the expiration date of your plan and the total number of years you've had an approved plan. Is the local government employee and 1 community volunteer core trained? Yes or no? C, did the applicant have 8 continuing education units between 2 people in the 2016 calendar year? Yes or no? And the second component to this is, did the applicant submit an annual accomplishment report for the 2016 calendar year? Yes or no? If you've answered yes to all of these questions and you're beyond your first year of implementation, then you are compliant with the Act and you do have approved status. The next question is whether you have a community tree inventory in place. Here I'd ask you to find out. Some applications last year would say, check no, we don't have an inventory in place, and then the first sentence of the project overview would be that, that based on our inventory, this is what we've decided to do. Or the opposite, a community would check yes and then apply for a tree planting grant and say, well, we don't have an inventory, but this is what we want to do. It's really important that an inventory is in place, and you're predicating your knowledge and you're predicating your application upon the knowledge that you have of the trees in your community. What trees do you have where, and how old are they, and what condition are they in? This is how you make the most cost-effective decisions for what you need to do in your community, in your urban and community forest. Are you a Tree City USA? Yes or no? If yes, for how many years have you been a Tree City USA? Another question we ask is if you are Sustainable Jersey certified, yes or no? Both of these questions go to your capacity to carry out projects and to see something through from start to finish. Note, for Tree City USA and Sustainable Jersey, we do ask for proof of your status. No proof equals less points on your application. How do you get proof that you're Tree City USA or you're Sustainable Jersey certified? For Tree City USA, you can go to arborday.org and navigate to the Tree City USA program tab. Once there, you can hit Start Your Application, and in the lower left-hand corner of that box, you hit Search for your community, and your community will pop up. You choose it, and it will print out a screen and show you whether you are approved for 2016 or not. You can just print out this page and submit it along with your application. Note, do not go to the map that the Arbor Day Foundation provides, because that map is based on 2015 numbers. So if you are not a Tree City in 2015, it will show up and it might cause some confusion. For Sustainable Jersey, you can go to sustainablejersey.com. Click on the current certified tab towards the bottom in the middle of your screen. Then click on List View, the name of your community, and View Profile. This will let you know if you are Sustainable Jersey certified and at what level you are certified. If you have problems with any of these sites or getting the proof, please reach out to the Arbor Day Foundation or Sustainable Jersey directly, not to the New Jersey Urban and Community Forestry Program. We also ask you to know if you are an NJRA impacted eligible municipality, and I'll go over some details on this later, and whether you are a no net loss eligible community. We will also provide details on this later. Accounting method is important for you to talk to your business administrator and know what's going on here, as well as the date of your fiscal year and your state vendor ID number. This information is vitally important for completing a grant agreement should you be awarded a grant. Finally, we need to know the authorized official to sign this application, and this should be the local government official authorized to sign the application and the grant agreement on behalf of the applicant. For example, the mayor or the business administrator. We also ask for the clerk's contact. This should be the municipal clerk or the county freeholder or other. This is the person responsible for the grant contract documents, and this address must be where the contracts are to be delivered. The NJDEP still develops their grant contract documents on paper, and we need to send them via the traditional post, so it's important that you give us the information in this section. The Chief Financial Officer. This must be the address where checks are to be delivered. I think that's self-explanatory why we need that address. It is important that the authorized official sign this application. An unsigned application is an incomplete application, and it will not be considered for funding. The project overview section of the application asks you to provide a comprehensive but succinct overview of the proposed project that includes basic details of who is doing what, where, and why. Projects should effectively work toward the stated goals of the Community Forestry Management Plan. By carrying out specific objectives identified in the CSMP and in accordance with the grant categories defined in the RFP, address the project's suitability as the most appropriate method to accomplish this through the use of CSIP practices identified in the CSMP. A project overview is required as part of a complete grant proposal application, but will not be scored and used as part of the selection criteria. This is where you get to give us the overview of what you are doing, the who, what, when, why, and how. It should touch on all the other sections of the grant proposal that come after it. It is important to be clear and concise in the project overview. Now we get on to the actual scoring sections. First, in section 8.1 is the CSMP implementation. This section, as we stated earlier, is worth 35 points. Here we ask you to identify the grant category for this project as defined in the request for proposals and describe how the project addresses one or more of the CSIP practices identified in the Community Forestry Management Plan. Explain how this work supports the goals, objectives, and statement of plan implementation defined in the CSMP and how it benefits your community. Scoring will be based on the degree to which the project's work in the chosen grant category directly supports the goals and objectives in the current approved CSMP and addresses one or more of the CSIP practices also identified in your plan. There should be a direct link between this proposed project, the CSMP goals, objectives, statement of plan implementation, and CSIP practices. You will need to demonstrate how each specific goal in your plan will be addressed and how the proposed project will bring the community towards realizing that goal. So you must take your CSMPs off the shelves and out of the drawers, crack them open and blow off the dust, and actually refer to them in this proposal. For example, if your goal in your CSMP is to maintain at least 40% of canopy coverage, you can state that verbatim in your CSIP application. We need you to identify the objectives from the plan that will be carried out through the proposed project and how the proposed project furthers achievement of the identified goals. So for example, your goal is to maintain canopy coverage. So you need to plant, your objective is to plant X amount of trees or to mitigate or suppress an invasive pest. Next, we ask you to address how the proposed project fits with the plan's statement of plan implementation. Explain how it is a priority action item as identified in your plan. So the statement of plan implementation is where you define what you are doing in years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of your plan. See if in 2017 what you want to do is identified in that section. If it is, then you're on track and implementing your plan as you've stated. If not, it is totally okay. Just know that you did not say that you were going to plant trees in 2017 in year 3 of your plan, and explain why you're choosing to do so now and how this project further supports your goals and objectives, and it's the right time for you to get this work done. Finally, we need you to express the forestry practices that the proposed project will address and how they relate to the goals, objectives, and implementation plan addressed through this project. Describe how the proposed project benefits the community. We want to know that you know all of the benefits that this project is carrying out so that then you can articulate them to your municipal leaders and substantiate the need for your program and show how much you're doing in your community. Don't forget to indicate whether the local government is a New Jersey Redevelopment Authority eligible municipality. We've provided the website on the application and here for you today. There are actually 67 communities on this list, so check and make sure if your community is one of them. The NJRA was created legislatively to coordinate response to revitalizing New Jersey's distressed urban neighborhoods. Next is the work plan. Here we ask you, it's worth 25 points, and we ask you to succinctly describe how this project will be carried out. Please refer to the request for proposals for specific information required for each grant category. This year, we broke this section out so you can see how it is scored. We ask for the project locations, existing conditions, and need. Describe the project location and existing conditions of the urban and community forest if known. Describe the need to carry out the work. Describe how this project relates to the CSMP. So let us know, where are you planting trees? What species of trees are you planting and why? What is the overall composition? This is why we're asking for you to have an inventory in place to apply for a tree planting grant. You know, are you following the 30-20-10 rule? You know, how is this planting leading to overall diversity and age stratification in your community? Also, if you don't have an inventory and you're coming in for a resiliency planning grant, just let us know that. Let us know the observations that you've noticed so far on the ground, even if a formal inventory hasn't been done. Just show us that you know your community forest and that you're making informed decisions about the work that needs to be carried out. Next, we ask for methods and deliverables. We ask you to explain the methods to be employed. Identify the deliverable that will be produced. So how are you going to carry out this project? Give us the details. Are you going to give us a tree inventory report? Are we going to get an as-built landscape plan? Are you going to submit a formal appendix or addendum to your existing CSMP to incorporate what you've done and show progress on the implementation of the plan, etc.? Next is personnel. We ask you to identify the municipal staff, Shade Tree Commission and volunteers, contractors, consultants, and partners who will be responsible for implementation of the project. Include the people who will manage the grant itself and the people who will implement the project. Clearly identify the roles and responsibilities of each of the project partners. Provide resumes, qualifications, and letters of support for all project partners as an attachment. It is important for you to note that we want resumes or bios of all the people that are going to play a vital role in implementing your grant. That goes for the management of the grant itself as well as the implementation of the project. If you don't already have specific people lined up, please give us an outline of the primary responsibilities or qualifications that you are going to demand of the people carrying out this project. Finally, the project timeline. Provide a narrative or diagram that clearly illustrates the project tasks and milestones within the defined work period. Significant project milestones must be included. These milestones go for, again, the management of the grant and the implementation of the project. We have given you an outline of all the reporting requirements required for the grant. So these should be involved in your timeline. You should know within 6 months of the start of the work period, you need to get a tree planting and maintenance plan approved. Within 1 year of the work period, you're going to submit your annual report, and then when the grant expires, and each additional year after. And those should be integrated with the milestones for your project. When are you going to start? When are you going to get your consultant hired by, etc., etc. We want to see that it's been thought out and you've thought about all aspects of the grant. The next section for 20 points is community capacity. Here we ask you to describe the local government's unique strengths and past demonstrated commitment to managing the community forest resource. You need to provide evidence and supporting documentation of sustained participation in Tree City USA, successful completion of grant-funded tree planting programs or inventories, or any sort of tree project that you've had funded by a grant before, and if not, maybe other projects funded through the municipality. You need to show proof of your certification in the Sustainable Jersey program, long-term partnerships with tree-focused groups such as statewide or regional nonprofits, universities, or state associations. And you can also document that you have an active and engaged Shade Tree Commission or committee. We want to see that you have the capacity to administer the project and grant efficiently and effectively. Next is the monitoring and evaluation section that's worth 10 points. This is section 8.4 of the request for proposals. Here we ask you to reference your Community Forestry Management Plan goals and objectives, identify measurable outcomes applicable to each CSIP practice that applies under each CFMP goal or objective addressed through this project. So again, it is totally acceptable and encouraged for you to plagiarize your Community Forestry Management Plan. Take an exact goal or objective that you've mentioned earlier from your CFMP and put it into this section. This is what you're working towards through this grant. What is this activity? What CSIP activities is this goal objective going to address? And then how are you going to measure it? What is the outcome? So for example, your objective is to conduct an inventory to understand the present state of the community forest resource, to prioritize maintenance activities, identify planting locations, and locate ash trees. So the CSIP practices that you're going to actually engage with this project are a tree inventory, public education and awareness, and insect and disease management. So what are the outcomes? You can come out with one complete inventory of all the community trees, or one sample inventory, or one partial inventory of the central business district. However you decide, what is this inventory going to produce for you? And you need to have the number here. It needs to be quantifiable. Public education and awareness, it's either one press release or multiple school presentations. Don't use the word multiple, use an actual number. We need actual numbers here to measure what you've done. For insect and disease management, maybe you developed one EAB mitigation plan and used it to append your existing CFMP. Another example of an objective would be reforestation of Broad and Oak streets. And you're going to do this through tree planting, but you're also going to accomplish stormwater mitigation. 50 trees will be planted and 100 cubic feet of stormwater will be intercepted per year. So that, okay. Last year there were problems with outcomes. The idea is to show how this project is work towards your goals and objectives and gives you a means to measure your success, quantify your work, and express value to promote your program. So then we ask you to describe your monitoring and evaluation plan. So describe the project's plan. Be specific about monitoring and evaluation submission elements, and you should include just narrate what you write above in the chart. What are the goals and objectives consistent with the CFMP? What are the specific CSIP practices? What are the measurable outcomes? But here is your chance to give the explanation of this program, of the monitoring and evaluation plan, and how it allows you to justify the activity funded by this grant, as well as how it moves you forward in implementing your CFMP. So you are showing measurable outcomes. You are showing progress towards the implementation of your CFMP. Okay. Finally, we have the budget and project leverage category, which is 10 points. This is section 8.5, and it's the last section that is scored in your proposal. Here we look at the grant and CSIP request. We ask that you only provide the amount requested through the CSIP grant here. Note that grantee and employee salary and wages are not eligible for CSIP funding. That's why these two areas are grayed out. For all consultants and subtractors, you can give us a lump sum here and then explain who will be funded and how in the narrative. For others, this might be supplies or materials that you're going to purchase independently, whether it's the trees themselves, the tree gators, any, handheld computer to do an inventory, to supplement what the consultant is doing. Just be specific and make sure that there's a number here. If there's no number here, the grant will be incomplete and it will not be scored. You wouldn't believe how many people didn't actually put in a CSIP grant request last year. So the next section is the match. Here is where we ask, how are you going to leverage the funds that the state is giving you? Through federal, state, non-CSIP funds, local government funds, private foundations, nonprofits, volunteer in-kind match, or other. A 50% match, cash or in-kind, of the total grant amount is required for this round of CSIP grants. Matching funding sources, as we said, may be federal, state, the local government, private foundations or nonprofits, volunteers, or other. We ask you to enter the value contributed by each source in the appropriate budget column. So if the local government is paying the salary, fringe, and indirect of staff members, put that in here and that will qualify as a match. If the private foundation is giving funding for an education program for you to promote your tree planting or inventory project, put that here. Make sure you fill everything out. Volunteer and in-kind contributions are encouraged. They are used in our federal reporting. The current independent sector volunteer rate for New Jersey may be applied to volunteer hours, including shade tree commissions, or committee members contributing to the implementation of the project or management of the grant. It is important to account for all volunteer time contributed to the execution of the project. The salary rate for all municipal employees working on the implementation of the project or managing the grant can be applied as cash match by the local government. Documentation for all volunteer and employees' hours will be required with all financial reporting. We have provided you with a link to the independent sector rate, which is where you can find the volunteer, the value of volunteer time. You need to click on the link for the full data set for all states. Don't use the big blue number in the middle, because if you scroll to New Jersey for the state's designated volunteer rate for each calendar year, you will see that New Jersey's rate is higher than the national average. You can use that number. Oh, I'm sorry, got ahead of myself there. Then we have the total project cost. These values should be the CSIP requested funds plus the required matching funds for each line. And as we said earlier, this total will auto-populate the first page of the application so that your numbers match. And it's important to make sure that these numbers go to the back, go to the front and match. Finally, there's the budget narrative. We ask you to clearly specify the purpose and accounting for each cost listed above. Describe source of matching funds and how this grant supplements the applicant's existing local and community forestry program budget. Describe how the grant funds will be spent. Describe the source of matching funds, and then explain how the project will supplement the applicant's existing local and community forestry budget to achieve holistic, sustainable, and effective urban and community forestry projects. Why do you need this grant? How does this grant help you leverage what you have going on right now and its support that you might not have had for work that you didn't do? Please don't enter action items or other activities that you haven't mentioned in your work plan here and provide justification. The budget narrative should support everything that you've outlined in your work plan and should not add new tasks and activities. Project selection. The New Jersey Urban and Community Forestry Program and the New Jersey Community Forestry Council will review, evaluate, and prioritize project proposals. Points for reforestation and tree planting grants will be given to local governments that were directly impacted by a no net loss reforestation project and do not currently have an open no net loss grant. The 2017 no net loss impacted communities are Barnegat Township, Ocean County, Delanco Township in Burlington County, Lower Township in Cape May County, and Parsippany Troy Hills Township in Morris County. Project submission. All proposals are due by 5 p.m. Tuesday, May 16th, 2017. All submissions must include the complete grant proposal application form and all supporting documentation, including the application form, letters of support, resumes, and consultant qualifications, and proof of certification for Tree City USA and Sustainable Jersey. Those are the only supporting documentation that will be accepted. Any additional pages will not be considered. Only what is described in the project proposal will be reviewed for the grant. Proposals can be submitted electronically to Community Forestry at dep.nj.gov or via traditional post. We anticipate the awards to be announced at the end of July 2017. So what's changed between this year and last year? A 50-50 match is required this year, and the resolution is no longer required with the application or proposal. It will just be required with the grant agreement if you are awarded a grant. Common application pitfalls is, as we've stated earlier, the project manager must be designated, and this must be somebody who knows what's going on. Application totals must match the budget. There should be no incomplete totals. The work plan, timelines must include milestones for the project and for the management of the grant. Try to avoid incomplete and vague applications. The best way to help you understand what I mean by this is try and give someone instructions on making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and have them literally follow what you are doing. You'll find out you get a pretty silly looking sandwich. You need to refine what you're saying, be clear about what you're saying, and just let us know step by step what the plan needs. It doesn't have to be fancy or long. It just has to really articulate to us what you want to do, how you're going to do it, and why you are going to do it. Late submissions will absolutely not be accepted. If you submit your application with no supporting documentation, and decide to get the supporting documentation in a day late, that we will throw it out. It will not be considered and points will be lost. That's it. Final suggestions. Please read the request for proposals and read the request for proposals and read the request for proposals. Make sure you make all the deadlines. Submit your grant electronically if possible. We really do prefer the electronic submission. Communicate. Make sure you involve all the relevant parties in your community. They should be actively engaged to know about the project. And feel free to email us with any questions. We are happy to assist you. We want your projects to be a success. We want to give you grants, and we want the great work to keep on going. At the end of the request for proposals, we provided you with a list of resources from our website to best management practices. We've also, everything that's on our website with relation to the grant, we've also provided as handouts with this webinar. The American Standard for Nursery Stock is available online in PDF form. And there is an appendix regarding tree inventories, an introduction to them, the minimum requirements, and software available that would be really helpful for those considering a resiliency planning grant. And remember, a healthy, safe, and resilient urban and community forests can provide environmental, economic, and social benefits now and for future generations. Thank you. I think we can now take some questions.
Yeah, Carrie, that was great. A lot of really useful information. Before we start with the questions, for those of you who might have joined us just a little bit late, if you have questions, you can type them into the question box in your control panel, which should be on the right-hand side of your screen. Our first question comes from Andrew Hillman. Andrew has kind of like a double question. He wants to know why not allow for bare root tree planting in his many years of experience, a 1.5-inch or 1.75-inch bare root trees will surpass the larger B&B trees within 2 years.
Hey Andy, how are you? We totally allow for bare root planting. In fact, if you go to the Category 2 reforestation and tree planting, there is a caveat in that section that stipulates that the 102 to 2.5-inch caliper B&B trees is just an example of what $30,000 could cover. And I read earlier that the monetary amount and size of the tree are just for reference. Applicants are free to develop a reforestation and tree planting projects with tree material, meaning the size, whether it's bare root or containerized seedlings, saplings, whatever, and reforestation activities. If you're going to actually reforest an edge of a forest in a park and you're putting up deer exclusion and controlling invasives in order to encourage regeneration, that is reforestation. Those activities are applicable. Anything that ensures the growth and establishment of trees and forests that best suit the needs of the community. So you can definitely go ahead and plant those bare root seedlings.
Thanks, Carrie.
Yep.
Our next question comes from Donna Fett, and she would like to know, is a community tree inventory all trees or only just hazardous ones?
Well, that's up for you to decide what you want and need for your inventory. A large inventory, a complete inventory for a community could be a lot to accomplish in 1 year. So you have to set your priorities based on what you've seen through your current forest. So if you wanted to prioritize, risk trees on public rights of way or, on streets, that's up for you to decide, what information do you need in order to make the best decisions for your community? I hope that answers the question.
Our next question is from Lisa Rosati, and she says, on the application for info number 2, the tree inventory, how would you answer if the town has a partial inventory and is requesting grant money to continue the inventory?
All right, I'm sorry. Can you just say that again?
Yes. Okay. I will. I may not be characterizing the question correctly. On the application under number 2 for tree inventory, how would you respond to that if they have a partial inventory and they're requesting grant money to continue the inventory? This is one of those I believe, yes or no questions on the form. Do you have a tree inventory?
So yes, you do have an inventory. Whether it's partial or complete, you have information that's guiding your decision making. So if you have a partial inventory, like your focus is currently on the downtown, and so you have an inventory of your downtown, just make sure when you're giving us that description that we ask for in the CSMP implementation section, that's where we give you the chance to describe what do you have, what do you know, and why are you making the current decisions that you're doing. If you already had a partial inventory of the downtown district and now you want to go, out 5 miles into the surrounding neighborhoods, or, there's a historic community that you want to focus on the trees, just let us know that. We're not here to dictate what the best way for your specific community is. We just want to understand how you're thinking about it and what your approach is.
Okay. Another question from Lisa. Is there a limit on the narrative length for the sections? A limit to how long they can be?
Yeah, however much fits in the page. I don't know what that is off the top of my head.
Okay. Our next question is from Robert Becker, and he would like to know, since they do have to link to the Community Forestry Management Plan, can they say, can the link be like, can they say per page, say 15, or can they state what page 15 says?
Yeah, you can say per page, 15, our community forestry management plan, our inventory goal is X, Y, and Z. But you can copy the words and spell it all out for us. That's really helpful. Don't make us work. You have to provide us with all the information that we need. Reading, all of these proposals is enough. You need to, pretend that we don't know anything about your communities and we've never seen your plans before. You know, because some of the people on council who will be evaluating these applications haven't. So you have to think about who your audience is and give them all the information that they would need.
Okay. Our next question comes from Jeffrey Tandle, and he says he wants to know, can you use funds from a county grant, county funds granted to towns out of their funds, and match this grant?
Not if it's both a CSIP grant, no.
Okay. Let's see. I'm sorry. Okay, this question comes from Chris Capodanno. He would like to know where he could find a New Jersey state list of invasive trees.
There is an executive order online that was, I think it was issued under the Corzine administration, and I forget the exact number, that does list some of the invasive tree species for New Jersey. There's also there's just a lot of resources about that stuff out and about. We don't keep our own list here at Urban and Community Forestry, but if you email us offline, then we can get you a copy of that executive order. There is also an invasive species strike team for New Jersey, so you might want to refer to them and see what they have available.
Okay. All right. This question comes from Lisa Downs, and she would like to know, does hazard mitigation for forest fire fall under resiliency planning?
There are no hazard mitigations this year, so there's not going to be any funding for removal of any tree. If you are doing, a community wildfire protection plan and you want to inventory for that, you can do that. But in terms of, I don't know what hazard mitigation means. If you're just identifying your risk trees for a forest fire, you can do that, but no funding will directly fund the removal of trees this year.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Peter Lomax. He said, Middle Township has an open no net loss grant. The sites are presently being planted, but he thinks he did not hear Middle Township when you listed the municipalities.
Well, because Middle was already funded under a previous no net loss grant, so it's not receiving priority funding under the deforestation that occurred to generate the funds for this year. Additionally, no communities with open no net loss grants are eligible for CSIP grants until their no net loss grants are closed out.
Okay. All right, this question comes from Stephen Barrett, and he would like to know what is considered a letter of support.
A letter of support is a letter from an organization that you or the Board of Education, the entity that you are partnering with to accomplish the work, stating that, how they are going to help you and contribute to the overall effectuation of this project. A lot of people were providing letters last year that were just letters from random council people saying, our Shade Tree Commission is great, and that's great, but we specifically want letters from your project partners talking about how you are going to engage with one another, and if possible, how you've worked together on a project in the past. and how that was successful, or the challenges that you overcame together to successfully carry out a project.
Okay. Our next question is from, I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name, Carol Avelsgaard, and she would like to know, can the grant include planting trees larger than 2.5 inches in diameter?
Well, it wouldn't be in diameter. At 2 to 2.5 inches, you're measuring the caliper inch, which is in nursery standard measured 6 inch above the root collar. But well, it depends on. So once you get higher, you might get to trees above dB, where you're planting trees of a certain dBH, but you can plant larger trees. You have to provide justification for why you're choosing to do so.
Thank you. Our next question is from Lisa Rosati, and she'd like to know, do hazard tree inventories have to be performed by a certified arborist, ISA or LTE?
Yes. I mean, that's a very specialized skill. They're now called risk tree assessments and not hazard tree inventory so much. There's even further training. There's track tree risk assessment qualification that's done by the International Society of Arboriculture that goes a step further, where an arborist or an LTE has gone through specific rigorous training in tree risk assessment in order to make the best decisions. It's a tricky skill, and you want the most highly trained people providing you that information.
Thank you. Okay. Our next question is from Joyce Calzanetti, and she would like to know, is there a list of qualified professionals who are available for contact to compile various tree inventories?
Yeah, so there's a couple of resources throughout the state. There is the Board of Certified Tree Experts, and their website is njtreeexperts.org, or you can email them at njtreeexperts@gmail.com. And they can provide you a list of active licensed tree experts in your community. There's the International Society of Arboriculture, and they have a certified arborist qualification that can assist with inventory. And there's also a list of approved foresters on the State Forest Service website. And any of those resources can help provide you with links to professionals.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody, just so that everybody on the call is aware that the rules for the licensed tree expert law did go into effect this Monday, the 17th. So now there are certain requirements for tree companies to have licensing and tree experts to be licensed for specific tree work activities. So make sure to visit the New Jersey Tree Experts website to familiarize yourself with that. And you can email them with any questions you might have on that as well.
Okay. Our next question is from Michael Reisner, and he says, if they don't know the name of who their contractor will be assisting them because they have to go out to public bid, what do you recommend they place for budget and or qualifications or work plan? I'm not quite sure.
No, I understand, because
good.
So you don't know who your contractor is going to be, but you do know the work that's going to be done. To develop a proposal, you have to kind of have a rough idea. So you might need to call around a little bit first and get an idea of how much people might charge for what you need to do. Or else you might want to go in blind and just say, well, this is how much we're going to ask for. We'll see if we get bids that fall into line. Mm-hmm. And then if you don't know the company, what kind of qualifications are you going to look for? Make sure that they're fully insured. Make sure they carry workman's comp. Make sure, that they're a licensed tree expert or, and certified arborist, or, just list for the skills that you would put into your bid for the professionals to carry out the work. We just want to know that you're thinking about who you're hiring, and you want to make sure that, you know, engaged and responsible professionals will be assisting you every step of the way.
Okay, thank you. Our
Mm-hmm.
next question is from Carol Laro, and she wants to know, must it, and I assume she means this grant application, be for a forest, or are suburban trees okay?
All trees within a municipality are considered urban and community forests trees. So depending on the goals that are in your stated community forestry management plan, it can be used in a traditional forest setting or in a street tree setting, or in a park setting or around public hall, or city hall, excuse me, any public property with trees within your community.
Okay, just a follow-up question from Carol. She says for her, it's too late to begin this grant application for submission this year, but what about next year?
Well, the deadline isn't, wait, hold on. The deadline
So
isn't May 6th. I'm looking
that's
at
what,
one other thing.
yeah,
So the
okay.
deadline is May, that's terrible. I don't know it off the top of my head. Is it May 12th? I think it's May 12th, right?
I'm afraid I can't help you. I
Oh,
don't,
here it is. Yeah. Oh, May 16th. I'm
yeah,
sorry. Okay. Sorry. I knew it wasn't the 6th. So
yeah,
we're a little over or less than a month away. And it's kind of our understanding. We tried to time this because we figured this is really when people get the rubber hitting the road in terms of completing these applications. So it's up to you and what your community's capacity is to complete it. If you are not currently an accredited community with the Urban and Community Forestry Program, there's definitely not time for you to get accredited before the grant is due. And I encourage you to reach out to Brian McDonald and learn about what you need to do to get accredited so you can be eligible next year.
thank you. Our next question is from Nathalie Fillion, and the question is, would it be okay to include the time of AmeriCorps Vista members working with the City of Newark as in-kind match? If so, there's more to it. Do you want to
Okay.
answer the first part,
Nope,
or
keep
should I
going.
read them? Okay. If so, should we use the rate from the independent sector rate or their living allowance? Apparently, Vista members are provided a living allowance that's close to minimum wage, but much lower than the rate from independentsector.org.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think what you have to do is you have to use the rate that they're getting paid for the work that they're doing. You can definitely use it as in kind, but the actually the federal government's already put a price on what that hourly rate is, and so that's what would have to be used for the match. If there is an AmeriCorps volunteer that yeah, that's the short answer on that one, Natalie.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks, Carrie. Our next question is from Stefan Malecki, and he says, if your town has a partial tree inventory, can we qualify for a reforestation grant?
As long as the reforestation is being informed by the inventory that you have in place. It's not like, oh, well, we have an inventory in, Central Business District, but, we want to plant in, XYZ neighborhood. Um, it you're not informed about what's going on there, but if you have your partial plan lets you know the planting opportunities that exist within the confines of what you have, then you're free to use that to inform the decisions that you're making. Yeah.
Thank you. A follow-up question from Jeffrey Tandle, who had asked about the use of county funds before. He says, to clarify, county funds are not from CSIP. Funds are from Union County Open Space Fund 50/50 grants. Would those be okay for a match?
Yeah, so as long as they're not the CSIP grants for forestry, and they're coming from the county, that would count as a local government match.
Okay, thank
Or
you.
it could be under other too, and you can specify the county whichever way you want to do it.
Okay, our next question is from Lorraine Konopka, and she'd like to know, would it be a good idea to list the CSIP grant we received to develop our community forestry management plan?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Lorraine, could you maybe send me a little bit of clarification on that, and we'll try to get back to you. I do see a lot of questions from folks who are asking if we'll have a copy of the presentation and the audio available to refer back to, and we will. It will take several days after the webinar for us to get that downloaded and sent out to you folks, but we are recording this and we will get that information out to you. Okay.
Really quick before folks sign off, I just want to make sure that you print out this last page that we have up of the webinar. Oh, I realized I have the questions up there for everybody to see and blocked everything else, but make sure you print out this last page of the webinar and sign it in and email it back to Brian, because this is how you'll get your CEU for this webinar.
Okay. All right, we still have a lot of good questions to go and we still have time, so let's move on. The next question is from Jerry Barbario, and he would like you to think back to slide 27, which I don't know if you can get up on the screen, and explain the issue with the first column of the budget, including the shaded area.
Okay, so this is the grant request, the CSIP request column. The grantee employee wages and the fringe benefits are grayed out because we will not pay for that. If you already have a budget and employees that you're using, then that shows that you have the capacity to carry that out. And these grants are to supplement whatever your current budget is to allow you to reach your goals and objectives. You want to make sure if you're going to use consultants and subcontractors that you put the total here and then clearly explain in the budget narrative what consultants and subcontractors you're using to do what. Are they going to do your tree planting plan soup to nuts and make sure that the trees are maintained for 2 years? Are you going to have one person do the design and one person do the planting and another company do the maintenance? You can put the lump sum for consultants and contractors in this box, but then you need to thoroughly explain it in the narrative. In the other section, this is where you can put if you're going to be procuring any supplies or materials for your project. So if it's a tree planting, some towns like to purchase the material themselves and then just use a consultant or subcontractor to plant the trees. So here you would put the trees, the number of trees, and how much you're asking for that. Or if you want to buy ooze tubes to water your trees, or if you're bulk buying mulch, or any other costs associated with the grant that might be here. Computer software for your inventory is acceptable, so yeah.
Okay, our next question is from Jody Hines, and it's kind of a two-part question, so let me ask the first part and have you answer that and then move on to the second part.
Okay.
Does preparing the grant proposal application count towards the total volunteer hours in the project or only after the grant is awarded?
Yeah, so you can't start the clock ticking until you get the email for us for the work period. So the grant preparation, the proposal preparation is not included in the match. The work period, once people are awarded a grant, we'll go over this in more detail, but the work period begins with the day we tell you the work period begins, and that is when work can begin on the grant. Or any on the project. It's going to be different this year than last year because there's something with the effective date. So this year all plans are due within 6 months of the start of the work period. This is because the grant process here at the state is pretty cumbersome, and it takes a really long time from starting the work period to get the official agreement executed. So once we say the work period begins, that's your chance to go and begin doing all the work that you need to do on the grant, not wait for the completely executed document.
Okay, and the follow-up is a related question. Also, for their last grant, they did not count their municipal workers in any in-kind hours, but from what she is understanding now, it's acceptable. Is that correct?
Yeah, the municipal workers would count as the cash match. The way that we do it here, the in-kind are volunteer hours, so we just can distinguish between what's voluntary and what's part of a salaried position. If a municipal employee is volunteering above and beyond their normal work hours in a field where they're have an expertise, then you can use their salary as an in-kind match. But if they are doing the work as part of their job for the municipality, then that would count as a cash match.
Thank you.
Yep.
Another question from Carol Avelsgaard. Can volunteer time from high school students be counted?
Yes, it can.
Oh, that was simple.
I mean, there's like a cutoff age for the type of work that students can do. It's, so make sure you check, if you're under 14, you can't operate heavy equipment. There's certain restrictions like that you might want to follow up with, but if they're 14 and over, yes, they can be counted as volunteers.
Okay, I do just want to mention to a number of people who sent questions, some of the questions we've received really don't pertain to this particular webinar, and if we don't have time to get to them, we will certainly send you a response separately via email. But I just wanted you to know we will answer all the questions, although we may not be able to get to all of them at this time. Our next question is from Jeffrey Tandu, and he would like to know, he says, are only LTEs allowed to be consultants? Why are licensed landscape architects excluded from experts?
Nobody's excluded from any experts. If you read the request for proposal carefully, it says certified tree experts, arborists, foresters, or other professionals. If the person's qualifications and degree can substantiate the work that they're doing, then that's fine. But if you're having a tree risk assessment done, a landscape architect may not be the best person to do that unless they're track qualified.
Okay. Another question from Jeffrey, who has a lot of great questions. What is acceptable documentation for volunteer hours? There usually are not books as there are for employees.
When you're awarded the grant and the draw comes in, then the grant administrator provides a form for you to fill out regarding the in-kind documentation. That's for each municipality to figure out how it's best for them to keep their own records and then report to us.
Okay. I'm scrolling down here. A lot of questions again about how to print the last page for CEUs, and I'm sure we'll be covering that in our follow-up email to you, just so you know how to print it out and get credit.
And can you hit Control Print, Control P on your keyboard, and then print current page? Or if you can hit Function Print Screen to copy the screen, and then open up a Word document and then paste it into the Word document. So Function Print Screen. In Microsoft Word, you can then paste, and then that should do the screen.
If anybody is having problems, they can certainly, I'll put my email into the chat box and send it to everybody. If you're having trouble printing, shoot me an email and we'll work it out. But before I do that, let me just ask another question. Okay, hold on a sec. All right, this is from Karen Reedy, and she said, from Ridgeboro, she said their third community forestry management plan will not be approved by the grant deadline. Would they still be eligible to apply for this grant?
It's just a matter of whether you have approved status under the program. So if your previous plan expired December 31st, 2016, then under the way the program is currently organized, you do have until the end of this year to get your new plan in. So that plan would be an active plan. You can check our website, communityforestry.nj.gov, and go to the 2016 approved status report. Scroll down on the page and then just click that, Control F, enter in the name of your community, and it'll tell you. If you have any questions with that report, you can talk to Brian McDonald. He's the new forester with our program, and he can help with any questions you have regarding your community's eligibility and accreditation in our program.
Thank you. Our next question is also from Lorraine Kanopka, and she says, in trying to show previous good management of funds, would it be helpful to indicate we did receive the money? Not quite sure I'm understanding that one.
I don't know. I don't understand that question as well.
Okay, Lorraine, if you want to shoot us another email with a further explanation, or send it to us separately, and we'll respond. I think we've hit most of the questions that are directly related to this webinar. Carrie, did you want to take a few moments and address some of the others?
Yeah, I mean, we have 4 more minutes in the schedule, so if you know, we want to answer some questions, we can go ahead and do that. We'll be able to save the questions as well, answer any that folks have.
Well, why don't we try to get just a couple of more questions in. I'm scrolling down trying to find shoot. Okay. One of the questions, someone wanted to know if we could explain a little more about the EAB problem. Could we please discuss the EAB problem? That, of course, may be too big of a question to address in the next 4 minutes.
Yeah, that's a webinar in itself.
I think so.
Emerald ash borer questions that you may have can be answered by going to the Emerald ash borer website. That's for New Jersey. It's emeraldashborer.nj.gov. There, all of the information from the New Jersey Emerald Ash Borer Task Force is posted on there. The big answer for this group is that you should have started managing for emerald ash borer like 3 years ago. So start now. Start by identifying where your ash is and deciding which ash you want to treat and which ash you want to remove. Think about what the implications are for your community depending how much ash you have. You know, is removing all of your ash going to create problems for your community so that, you know, there's increased stormwater mitigation problems and flooding, or, you know, increased temperatures? You might want to then consider a SLAM approach, or a slow ash mortality, where you decide that you're going to remove the highest risk ash trees first and treat the others and have a slow program. I'd also encourage you to get together with your counties and your neighbors to come together and decide on ways to address the ash. You know, economies of scale are a really good thing, and costs for removals and treatments can go down the more trees a contractor is including in a certain contract. So, you know, let's all work together. Let's make informed decisions, and let's not panic. Let's just do the right thing.
Okay, I think we'll just take one last question before we end. Can as one of our webinar attendees wants to know if there is a best place to get trees. She recently took a course on tree planting at Rutgers, but they were not allowed to recommend anyone, and I'm not sure we are either, but I don't know if you have some guidance you could give her.
No, we are not allowed to recommend any specific vendors as a state employee, but a great resource for you might be the NJNLA. That's the New Jersey Nursery and Landscape Association, and they have lists of nurseries and landscapers in the state. And ask around. Um, you know, go to your neighboring towns, or ask people in your community what nurseries they've used. Word of mouth is a really good way as well.
Okay. I think we've pretty much covered all of the questions, and we are down to like the last minute. Carrie, is there anything else you'd like to share with the folks on the webinar?
Just thank you so much for joining us. We had over 100 registrants and over 70 attendees. So for our first webinar, it looks like it was really great. If you have any feedback for us about anything you might want to see in a future webinar or improvements we can make in our current webinar style, or I don't know what it is because it's so new. We'd love to hear from you, and just feel free to reach out to any of us at Urban and Community Forestry at any time. We are here to help you and to create great local urban and community forests for everybody. So any questions, just reach out to myself or Brian or Terry or Shannon. We're happy to help you. So thank you again very much.
And with that, thank you, Carrie. It was an excellent webinar, and on behalf of Carrie and myself, I want to thank you all for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.